Welcome to Deal Talk. My name is Jeffrey Veit. We're going to talk about avoiding dealer tricks and buying smart so that you save big when you purchase a car, truck, motorcycle, boat, motorhome, whatever. And we're going to cover some of the automotive news at the same time. But we do that every week here on the podcast. And we've done it about, probably counting the last season and this season, close to 400 times. That's a lot of information, and it's all good stuff. This week, let's start with the EV corner, right? We go over the electric vehicle stuff every week now because there's always something more to add, but I've got more information that proves that this is a bad investment, an electric vehicle. But did you know about highway driving consumption? To fully understand the range problem of modern electric vehicles, you have to comprehend their energy consumption. The advertised range that many manufacturers brag about is an average or city driving figure. However, the highway range is much smaller, sometimes up to 50% less. Complete opposite of gas or diesel, right? You get the best gas mileage on the open road with a vehicle. With an electric vehicle, you get the worst mileage. The reason is that electric vehicles get a lot of energy from regenerative braking, which is the process of getting some power back from stopping or coasting during city driving, or you use your brakes a lot, which reduces the energy consumption. However, while driving on the highway, there's far less or even no braking, so the battery's drain is consistent. Yeah, it's exactly the opposite of what you would think. They certainly don't put it in their ads, do they? Another issue is cold temperature issues. This is another one that we've talked about briefly a little bit, but to cover it some more, when it's freezing outside, electric vehicles are notorious for displaying specific problems. One of the most common issues is the loss of battery power. It's similar to old cell phones when cell phones first came out that they would stop working. You take them out of your pocket in the wintertime, start talking on the phone, all of a sudden they quit working. Since the bulk of the electric vehicle market is in the northern hemisphere where the winters are cold and snowy, cold weather battery drain can be a big problem for everyday use. It certainly can. Owners report a reduced range and even the failure to operate in a specifically harsh weather condition. That could be life-threatening. You imagine being in your electric vehicle and it's freezing cold out and now it doesn't want to run? That's serious. One last point for the EV corner is trip planning problems. Now, we've probably touched it, but I got thinking about it from another angle here. Small ranges and long charging times can put a strain on any road trip. You can't plan a fast trip in an electric vehicle without knowing the location of charging stations. You'll also need to know, how the estimated duration of charging or supercharging. Other factors to be aware of are the latest weather conditions and temperature changes. They also affect how much electric power you're going to have and how long the charge is going to take. Those meteorological circumstances affect the car's range significantly. That's why electric cars are only suitable for short trips, really. That's it. You can forget driving from coast to coast in one, at least not in a reasonable amount of time. You'll have to plan each charging stop along the way to avoid getting stranded in the middle of nowhere. And that's a consideration. You're taking a trip in an electric vehicle, the technology's not there yet, right? You're taking a trip in an electric vehicle, a long trip, is akin to the Wright brothers trying to fly the Atlantic when they invented the airplane. Same idea, the technology wasn't there yet. Their technology wasn't there to even fly miles yet. Over the last year or two, we've come up with 30 really good reasons to avoid an electric vehicle for at least the next 15 years. It's just not a good investment. There's no point about it that pays off well. It just doesn't come out well. They're not only overpriced, they contribute to the emissions as much as cars do, only sooner when they build the battery, when they build the vehicle. They weigh a lot more. They're harder to stop. There's a whole bunch of issues with them. Anyway, that's the EV corner this week. For the rest of the podcast, we're going to talk about a major consideration that affects your wallet. That's for sure. If you like the show, please take a couple of minutes and do a review on iTunes or Google Play, whichever you use, whichever one. If you've already done a review, thank you so much. And a lot of you have, and I really appreciate it. Don't forget to tell your friends and relatives about the podcast. They'll save dollars and you'll be a hero. It's a good win-win. Those of you who'd like some written material with you to carry when you're out shopping, then by gosh, get a copy of The Informed Buyer. I don't know why everybody hasn't bought one. Really, I don't know why the thousands and thousands of people who listen to this podcast everybody hasn't bought one, because for what it costs, it's just too good an investment. It'll give you the basics for reference, just in case you forget something when you're at the actual dealership or negotiating a deal. And best of all, it costs $3. It's been $3 since it came out, and inflation hasn't affected it. It's still $3. Yep, inflation is not a factor on this. Well, it really doesn't matter whether you're buying an electric, a gas, a sedan, or truck, new or used, or any buying situation. Resale value is a big, if not the biggest, consideration. In fact, almost any major purchase, you should be thinking about resale value. Because at some point, especially any purchase where you're going to want to trade it or realize some residual value and move up or move to a different use, and that's almost everybody, right? I mean, especially if you're going through your life, you're going to have times when you have more children, or you need more room, or you need more carrying space, or, needs change. And so you got to consider the residual value, or what you're going to get for it when you go to trade it, right? Same with anything, a boat, motorhome, I don't care what it is. Resale value is the single biggest cost to you as an owner, other than theft. And you have insurance for that. At least I hope you do, right? The cost per year of the total ownership, which affects largely what you can get for the vehicle when you trade it or sell it, is what counts. The difference between what you paid and what you sell it for is the true cost of ownership. Adding in the maintenance and upkeep gives you an even clearer picture of the total cost to you over the period of time. But the percentage of value versus what you paid is the biggest factor in cost. Resale value, that is number one. You can't actually see it or touch it. And it can be your friend or your enemy. Resale value is big. Many things affect resale. If a company has a big sales drop or a poor quality issue, that will play a part and often affect on the entire model lineup that they have. When you're talking about motor vehicles, for instance, if you have a bad car line that's got a bad reputation, it'll affect their whole car line. For sure. The resale value percentages can vary completely between comparable vehicles by as much as 10 up to 25%. There are even few examples of higher than that. You might think that you're making a fantastic deal that might look that way at the time you're purchasing, but in reality, you might be making a poor or a less than great deal in the long run. An example would say, let's say you got two vehicles that sell for approximately $35,000 a piece. One has a 5-year value of 40%, and the other has a 5-year value of 25%. That's trade-in value, what it's worth at the end. That means the depreciation on one vehicle is $21,000, and the depreciation on the other vehicle is $26,250. So that means that one, both starting in the same price, but one cost you $5,250 more to own without any negotiating. So let's say you negotiated and you saved $2,000 or $3,000 on the one with low resale value. You think you got a great deal, but in the long run, you would still be losing over $2,000 because of the resale value at the end. They might think, well, I don't worry about that at the end. You got to worry about it sometime because it's going to be in effect. There's nothing you can do. You can't change that. What's sometimes paying more for something in the long run is actually you're paying less when it comes to resale value. And even after negotiating, and that's an example that I brought up, you'd still be $3,000 in the hole, even though it looked like you got a $3,000 better deal to begin with. It's completely out of your control that you had a higher cost in the long run. You don't really have any control over it. The only chance you had to rectify the situation was when you purchased. You can't fix resale value later. $1,000 or $2 lower price wasn't enough at purchase time because the low resale value, it could be $3,000 or $4,000 higher price at the end of 5 years or 4 years for the good one. And so the $2,000 that you saved didn't make any difference. It was actually turned out to be a bad deal. Like I said, there are a lot of things that make resale value good and a lot of things that can make it bad. The first thing that affects resale value is probably a given. That's the condition of the vehicle at the time you trade it in or you sell it. I mean, that's something you do have control over. And there's things that you can do to them that you don't even realize it's going to have an effect. For instance, people that smoke will buy a vehicle that was smoked in. But a non-smoker usually will not. They can tell it's there. The condition of the vehicle inside can form an opinion of how it may have been taken care of in general as well. So it's always good that if you don't smoke in your car, because that allows a bigger demand. There's more people that will want that vehicle, which affects the price. If your seats are ripped and there are broken taillight and repaired dent, those aren't terribly expensive things to fix, but most people might think that the vehicle probably wasn't cared for in every way. Things like needed maintenance and the owner's driving habits would be assumed to be bad because of that. What should you do? Fix it up before selling it or trading it? The cost of fixing your trade up probably costs less dollars than what will be deducted if you don't, and maybe a lot less. Anything that affects the appearance, like scratches in the paint, even small ones sometimes, small parking lot dings, can affect resale because the cosmetic appearance. Think about a professional detail before trading or selling your vehicle. A good detailer can mask a lot of car issues. A complete repaint can also be a condition problem. It makes people wonder, why was it painted? Not so much on a car 8 or 9 years old, but when the vehicle is anywhere from 1 to 6 years old, that has an effect. I don't want to buy a vehicle that's a repaint. Who knows what the story is, right? Vehicles are usually repainted for a reason: damage, hard use. Not much you can do. If it's a simple reason for paint work, have a copy of the repair bill available when you're going to trade it. If you've got a late model vehicle, 4 years old, and it's been repainted, have a copy of the repair order to show why it was repainted. That will make a difference because it can get repainted for things that aren't that big of a structural issue, like, for instance, if it was hail damage. And that could ease the amount of deduction for being repainted. It's still going to cost you, but it may not cost you as much then. Major damage repair is another one that affects resale value. It's traceable now with using Carfax and AutoCheck. This can put a trade almost out in left field for value. In many past episodes, I recommend never buying a used vehicle without seeing the Carfax or the AutoCheck. And if it has major former damage, I say avoid it. There's lots of fishing to see. Just move on. Don't worry about it, unless you're getting it for a salvage price and you're a mechanic. Salvage price, reconstructed frame price, those kinds of things. When the vehicle's still past the inspection, if you're buying it for half of the value or less, that's different. You're tech. But generally speaking, the average person should just walk away from those vehicles. If you're receiving an insurance check for repairs, you might want to bring up resale value with the insurance company. Yeah, if your vehicle gets hit and it has to be repainted and it's only 2 years old, I would want something for that. I wouldn't take just the repair. No, thank you. You just killed the resale value of the vehicle. I want some extra cash for that. It might be better if the insurance company got you a different vehicle now rather than keeping the unit and trading it in as a scarred vehicle later. Discuss it with the insurance company. It is a valid concern. It is something that you have an argument for, and it's a fact. Another big effect on resale value is mileage. Mileage has a huge effect. One reason that it does is because many people think that it's what determines the lifespan of the vehicle. The books that establish car values, in many cases, use mileage as a big adjustment factor, and rightfully so. 12,000 miles a year is considered average. So if you got a 3-year-old vehicle with 36,000 miles, that would be average. 10,000 miles a year is considered lower than average. So if 30,000 miles on a 3-year-old vehicle, that's a little on the low side. Not a lot on the low side, but a little. And anything over 15,000 miles a year is considered high mileage. And as you get more or less in those degrees of those two things I mentioned, it affects the value even more. Of course, vehicles can have extremely low or extremely high mileage. And the mileage adjustment for exorbitant mileage amounts should probably be more than the books reflect. So like if you're looking at a vehicle that's 3 years old and it's got 70,000 miles on it, the book's not going to deduct enough. They are on a curving scale. You might want to get another opinion. That's why you get a description of the vehicle, call used car dealers and see what they'll give you. That'll give you the wholesale value. That'll give you a good idea, but high mileage really rams the value. So take this into consideration when financing. If you finance 72 months and drive 20,000 miles a year, you're going to have 140,000 miles on the vehicle when it's paid for. That's a lot of miles. Maybe a shorter finance term. Maybe keep up the depreciation better. Otherwise, you're upside down most of the 6-year period. Another consideration is an almost new vehicle. It might work out better for high mileage drivers. So if you drive a lot of miles a year, if you drive over 15,000 a year, let's say you drive 18 or 20,000 miles a year, take a look at the numbers of a late model used, 1 or 2 years old, because you beat that initial depreciation. None of these affect the percentage value indicated in the market value guide or the reality of the starting number for a general line of that make. But those items we just covered all deduct from the market, aka book value number, higher or lower, so the final resale figure is comparatively more or less. So when you're looking at the brand, the mileage on another one in that brand wouldn't make any difference on the whole brand. But those things I talked about do make an effect on that particular one. Market conditions can hurt resale value as well, or help it, like right now, the market the way it is right now, which is nuts. Trade-in values are way higher than they were, and prices are selling for way higher. Now, it's going to turn around, and the people who bought vehicles are going to hold in the bag. That's why I tell everybody they should wait. Wait another year. Let the Congress, let the midterms elections take hold, and then in the spring you'll see things will come down. Or another thing is they stop making the model you own. That can affect the resale too. Most years there are 10 or 20 models discontinued. Last year they had a bunch of them. I mean, there was Alphas and Acuras and BMWs and Buicks, Cadillacs, Chevy Impala, for instance. Dodge Caravan. Dodge Caravan was like practically saved the company if you go way back. And they got rid of it. Ford Fusion, the Ford Mustang, Honda Civic Si. There was a bunch of them. And the year before that, had a bunch. Audi and Buick and Cadillac. The Chevy Volt, Smart Car, that's electric. They quit building that because they weren't selling any. Volkswagen e-Golf, they quit making. There's a bunch of vehicles that they quit building that had an effect. This year, for instance, Ford's not going to build sedans anymore. That's right. Think about that. They stopped building sedans. Four-door sedan Ford. I think this is the stupidest mistake the company could make. They're looking so small. They're not looking at customer service and taking care of their customer. They're looking at saving some money. Well, if we just get rid of those and just build SUVs, it'll be simpler and it'll cost us less. And kind of the story of the F-150, one of the things that makes it so successful is they've used the same molds and the same basic frame structures for F-150 for so many years. They don't make any mistakes. It's not expensive to make, and they've done a great job. It's like anything you do over and over and over, you get better at it. And that's why it has such good resale value. But to stop building sedans is like saying to your customer, well, we don't have everything you want. You know, when I go to a place and they don't make anymore something that I liked, it kind of irritates me. It makes me think, man, wasn't it important enough to, you have to, streamline your whole product because you don't want to make this thing because it might be inconvenient. You don't make enough money on it. Baloney, that's not customer service. That's the opposite. It gives you, in my opinion, that gives you a good insight as to where their head is at. Their head's at, well, it should be making money, but not to the point where they give up customer service. They don't put the customer in mind. I think that not making a sedan is foolish. And that'll just give more sales to companies like Toyota and Honda and Mazda, which build a little better car now anyway, but it's going to give them all that business. And I don't like that because that means that they could get a little lackadaisical in their product because they don't have any competition. But anyway, it's not your fault, but it hurts resale value in most cases, especially for a similar model or when the body style changes. Not so much with trucks, but definitely with cars when you change the body style. I know from working for Mercedes, for instance, they change the body style on models about every 8 or 9 years. When the new body style comes out, the old one is not quite as well. It's still a Mercedes, still has cells, still a great vehicle, but it just doesn't have the appeal. Isn't worth quite as much as it was. These resale issues are a contributing factor to being upside down. Upside down is the relationship between what you owe and what the vehicle's worth. With better resale, those numbers are closer so that you're less chance of being upside down. This could be the difference between being able to trade and not being able to trade, especially in the first few years of ownership. Then you have magazines that pick the best resale values, right? I checked many of the list magazines that you can go to and the listed websites that you can go to, and they all list the 10 best and a couple offer the 10 worst. All the lists are different. It's the 10 best on every site is different, with the exception of old standard high resale vehicles that anybody knows have good resale value, like a Corvette, an F-150, a Silverado. Everybody agrees it has great resale, or it's a good can be on the best 10 list. But when it comes to other cars, only a couple of cars other than the old models appeared on more than one list. Some offer the 10 worst, and you may find a unit that's on the 10 best on some other site is on the 10 worst on another site. Well, what's that tell you? It can't be the worst and the best, and they just don't agree. No, it's because they're getting paid for what they're publishing. Doesn't really have as much meaning with most of those sites. They're in it for the buck. That's why those lists are so different. I think it's obvious that the different lists have different ad sponsors. The lists mean absolutely nothing in most cases, in my opinion. If you get anything right, it's the 10 worst. They're always right in the 10 worst because nobody pays for the 10 worst list. And not always get it right, but a lot of times you'll see some consistency on the 10 worst. 2 or 3 of them will be on the worst site for many of them, and that'll give you a good picture of those 2 or 3. But Consumer Report is probably the best place to look, hands down, no question about it. I don't know of a better place to look for resale value and to get a good picture of it than Consumer Report. What can you do other than take care of the vehicle to keep the resale up? There are a few. How about when you buy it? What things can make it hold its value better and just make it generally better at the end of the ownership period? That's something to consider, right? The options you choose are big in what affects resale value. You can definitely improve your deal by buying the right vehicle with the right equipment. Autotrans is good on any vehicle. That's why stick is kind of on its way out. Even trucks are worth more and more desirable with Autotrans. Pretty soon you won't be able to buy standard shift vehicle, or there'll be very few of them. If they want stick, they usually have to consider Autotrans whether they like it or not. Even performance vehicles like Corvette are more sellable with an automatic transmission. You say better gas mileage? Not so much anymore. So auto is a big plus. There's no difference. There's no advantage there. Luxury vehicles that aren't loaded take a hit too. Usually people that buy expensive plush vehicles want it all. And when one of those options is missing, saleability drops. Not so much in an average vehicle with a fancy stereo or GPS because, it's in everybody's phone now, but geography plays a part as well. In snow country, all-wheel drive and 4x4 adds something more than you paid for the option, because in those areas, it's considered to be a must in many cases, or at least very desirable, right? If you don't have a sunroof, though, in a Mercedes-Benz, or you don't have, if you get a really expensive car and it doesn't have real leather seats, things like that, and it's gotten to the point where it's harder and harder to not buy one loaded because the manufacturers know it too. It kills the resale value without having everything. And that's why you'll see vehicles with luxury packages like the Honda. Honda EXL only comes with a sunroof. They don't build one without a sunroof. The reason why is they know that there's a resale. I had to buy, when I bought my Hondas, I would always buy an EXL. I'd have that sunroof and I might have cracked it once or twice in the whole ownership. It really meant nothing to me. When I bought the Toyota, though, my Toyota with leather and everything, they gave you the opportunity to buy it without a sunroof, and that's what I did. Because I wouldn't use it anyway. Same with trucks. On a pickup truck, a short box hurts the resale. Trucks are used to carry stuff. That's the point of a truck, to carry things in the box. An 8-foot box is very important, and the short box doesn't get things done enough. So if you're a contractor or somebody using your truck and you need 8 foot, you are not going to buy a 6-foot box. But if you're a guy that's looking for a short box, you'll consider a long box. Having more than you need is one thing. Having less than you need, that's something else. If you can get extra seating on a wagon or a van, get it. Think about buying the extra seating because it adds to the resale so much. You're buying a van and you can get 9 passengers instead of 7 or something like that. Do it for the couple $100 it costs. Get it. Body style can matter as well. 4 doors always outsell 2 doors in the standard sedan, like the Auto Trans versus stick. If you need 4 doors, 2 won't work. If you need 2 doors, 4 will work. Oh, supply and demand thing, right? Here's one you may not realize. Color can be a big factor. I know, but it can, especially on luxury vehicles. BMWs and Mercedes can be hugely affected. Many times buyers from other countries or people that come to the auctions, if it's not white, black, or silver, they won't even bid on it. They won't even buy a red sedan Mercedes, a blue or a gold one. They're like dead in the market. They'll buy it, but they got to buy it for thousands less because it's just not going to have the appeal. What's going to sell it is price. Sedans in the South always have a little more desire when they're white. Color can affect desirable trade-in numbers by hundreds of dollars. No question about it. Performance doesn't help unless it's a sporty model. In that case, people will pay a premium for the biggest and most powerful powertrain, and a lot less when that's missing. This year, new vehicle inventory levels have dropped, right? They say because of the chip. Well, they say the chip is one of the reasons why, and the supply and demand is out of work, and the COVID, and the plants have been closed, and a lot of reasons. I personally think that a lot of it is made up. It's planned this way. It's part of bringing you over to electric. It's forced. The government is supposed to do things that we want them to do. They're not supposed to force us to do things that they want us to do. They got it backwards. The regime we have now is absolutely got their head on backwards. They really don't know who Pat shot at. They don't. It's a shame, but it's the way it is. Values are up because of the shortage, right? When my lease ended in March, I could have made $5,000 on my lease vehicle if I'd have turned it in with a Toyota dealer. They'd give me a check for $5,000, leave my car. I didn't because I still have to buy one, and everything else is crazy priced like that. So I just didn't. I just kept my lease vehicle. And leasing is dead because of it, The market's so off. They're selling vehicles for over MSRP, and them leasing companies won't take a vehicle for over MSRP. You have to come up with that difference between MSRP and what they want. You'd have to come up with that cash, and at that point, it doesn't make leasing the whole point of it kind of dwindles in the light. But it'll come back, but not right now. They're literally stealing from the public. Where's the FTC and the U.S. Attorney General right now? I don't know why they can do that. I don't know how they can do it away. That's why they say wait to buy for another 12 months. Just wait. Don't go through that. Don't get charged those ridiculous prices. When you got a lease and you go to turn it in, they tell you that you can't sell it. You can't trade it with another manufacturer. It's never been like that. It's been in the contract maybe. Who cares? Nobody, the contract, the real contract is what's indicated. The FTC says that, a lot of the laws that we have say that what the market has been is just much of the law as what they might put in a contract, right? But that's what they do. They get away with it. But wait 12 months, things will turn around. We'll be back to the same old game, right? Motorcycles are the same. The imported motorcycles, the performance models hold their value pretty good, like Suzuki. Generally, Harley-Davidson is probably the best resale value motor vehicle of any in the world. No question about it. Just the name has power. When I worked for Harley, you could buy a Harley for $20,000, and a few years later, it was worth $16,000 still. You buy a Honda for $12,000, and a few years later, it's worth $6,000. It cost you $4,000 to own the Harley and $6,000 to own the Honda. And you thought, well, the Harley's way more expensive. No, it wasn't. Not in the long run. In the long run, it was less. I mean, let's think about Harley-Davidson. People tattoo the company's name on their body with permanent tattoos. What other product do you know that does that? There aren't any. That's why it's a cult-driven product. Other companies spend thousands to just be associated with a name, like the Ford Harley-Davidson pickup. You don't think Harley let them use that for free, do you? That was big money for them. What about electric vehicles? right? I think the answer is obvious. With all the issues, and there are at least 30 big ones, along with the limited serviceability of an electric vehicle. I mean, you think about it. You got an electric vehicle and you need some service work done. Where do you take it? You could say, well, I take it to the dealer. If it's a Toyota, I take it to the Toyota dealer. Yeah, fine. But what if you can't? What if there isn't a Toyota dealer? You know, how many techs do they have that know about electric vehicles at a Toyota dealer? Those guys have been fixing gas cars for a long time. They haven't been fixing electric vehicles. They don't know much about them any more than you do. They go to some classes, sure. But you know as well as I do, hands-on is a whole different way of learning. And the point of it is, because of all this, because of the reasons why not, because of the fact that it's weird in the marketplace, because it's just not going to have any resale value. People that buy one are going to take a lump on the chin like you wouldn't believe when they go to sell it. That's just the way it is. And that brings up a very big point, brand. The brand of the vehicle can add to the resale percentages across the entire line. Ford in the world of truck. When you go to look at Ford truck, just because it's a Ford makes the truck worth a little more than other trucks, no matter which model it is. Honda, Toyota. A Honda, don't care what model it is, has good resale. A Toyota, no matter what model it is, a good resale. That's because of the reputation of the brand. Lexus, Acura, Mercedes-Benz are the same way. Those are factors. Brand is a big factor. I would shop, when I go shopping for vehicles, I only shop the good brands, and from there, I look at the one I want in the good brands. If it's not a good resale brand, I don't care if a particular model might be good. I'm not taking a chance. You couldn't give me a Jeep, almost. And it'd have to be a third of the price or better for me to even consider one, because they have no brand reputation. They have the reputation that they were in the war, or they're four-wheel drive and they can go through the snow. But I lived in the north. They aren't even that great in the snow. What about products available, the proposed protection for the vehicle? What things make sense? There are some that add to a resale value because they protect the long-term appearance, and you know about first impressions. That's the big thing, right? Things like rust proofing, in the north especially, paint sealant, scotch guarding the seats, gravel guards, definitely help maintain the resale value. No question about it. All those things are worth the investment if you can get them at a reasonable price. And again, the question comes up, how much is the cost versus the support, right? What is the cost-benefit ratio? On those, you can, if you're not too lazy to get off your butt and shop the price, like paint sealant, I do it myself when I buy the vehicle. I didn't even get a price on it this last time. I just do it myself. Rust proof. You can shop around for rust proofing, but if I live in Northeast, I don't care what they tell you. Well, it's all galvanized metal out. I don't care what they tell you. The frame isn't. Parts of the chassis aren't. No, I don't want it. I want it. And it also makes the vehicle quieter. I would have rust proofing and paint sealant no matter what. Scotch guard on the seats or leather guard, whichever you have. No question about it. I do it myself. Gravel guards, you can get the dealer to do them for a reasonable price, or you can do them yourself. There's no work involved. Really, it's pretty simple. The factory gravel guards use the same screws as the ones that are already there in many cases. When you go to buy, think about resale. Resale is huge, huge factor. That's one of the 30 big reasons not to buy an electric vehicle. But it's also a reason not to consider, for instance, in my opinion, Fiat. They don't make a vehicle that I would consider. They don't have any resale value. There's a lot of companies out there that just don't have it. I just wouldn't take the chance. There's so many fish in the sea. Why take the chance on one that doesn't have the resale value? It can mean thousands of dollars to you. And I'm not exaggerating that either. I mean, it can be huge. Nothing on a vehicle other than theft or it being totaled and then repaired, which is really resale value, but nothing will affect your pocketbook more than bad resale value. That really is the biggest thing. So think about it when you go to buy. Spend time considering resale value. It's a big, big, big factor. Well, that's Deal Talk for this week. If you have a question or request or even a comment, please call or email me. Callers dial 407-801-4071. That's 407-801-4071. Or email dealtalkpodcast@gmail.com. That's dealtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Please don't forget to do a review wherever you get your podcasts. And do yourself a favor by getting a copy of The Informed Buyer from Amazon or Nook. It's $3. What else in your life is $3, especially now? Thank you, Mr. Biden. Like I mentioned before, tell your friends and relatives. They'll save big, and they'll thank you for it every single time. It's just nobody loses that listens to Deal Talk. However I can help you, contact me, and you'll hear from me. And remember, every payment you get should be CPI, complete payment information. I know I mention it every week, but I like to mention it every week because it's one of the single most important things. Complete payment information, amount, months, rate, any required down payment to get to those terms. Every time they quote you a payment, you get the payment information every single time. And every price you get should be all in. Don't take that, this amount plus fees or plus tax. Don't take any of that. You get the total, every single cost required to buy the vehicle, the tax, the tag, the dealer fee, options, every single cost. You make sure they give you the OTD out the door.